down the hill about 12 o'clock, sit right down on a great big rock, look down at the water and bless my soul, saw a great big bass fish jumping in holes. I'm a-going fishing 'cause everybody's fishing, and I'm a-going fishing too. You bet your life that your loving wife might catch more fish than you. Any fish will bite if you got good bait. And here's a little something that I'd like to relate. I'm a-going fishing 'cause everybody's fishing, and I'm a-going fishing too. Got a pole and a line and a triple hook. An old man smiled as he looked at me. He said, son, catch an old bass fish for me. I'm a-going fishing 'cause everybody's fishing, and I'm a-going fishing too. You bet your life your loving wife might catch more fish than you. Any fish will bite if you got good bait. And here's a little something that I like to relate. I'm a-going fishing 'cause everybody's fishing, and I'm a-going fishing too. Oh. Walked down the hill about 12 o'clock, sit right down on that great big rock. I looked at the water and blessed my soul, so a great big bass fish jumping that hole. I'm a-going fishing 'cause everybody's fishing, and I'm a-going fishing too. You bet your life your loving wife might catch more fish than you. Well, any fish will bite if you got good bait. And here's a little something that I'd like to relate. I'm a-going fishing 'cause everybody's fishing, and I'm a-going fishing too.
Boy, I sure thought I'd catch a fish off that log right there, but maybe I'll get him the next time I come by. Well, topwater fishing has really been great this morning, and I'd like to show you some of the ways that I like to topwater fish. Topwater is probably the most enjoyable type fishing that you can do, mainly because you can see the plug go into a good cast that you make. It's kind of like playing basketball. If you only seen the ball after it went through the hook, you miss most of the good part about it. And that's the way of topwater fishing. Casting, making a good cast, and then also is watching your plug work. When you see this plug coming through the water and you make it do what you want to make it do, it's something that you do yourself. Where underwater fishing, the plug is down there and you don't see most of the strikes. And then when you do see a topwater strike, boy, it's one of those kind of things that just makes you want to jerk the plug right through his mouth. And you miss him a lot of times. But anyway, we'll go through some of my favorite topwater lures and how that you work them, and also some of the things that I like to use in topwater fishing. First, I'll sit down right here. I get a lot of questions that people ask me. They say, well, what type of rod and reel do you like to use, and what size line you use? First off, I like to use a rod that's probably you might call a light action. A light action rod is one that the tip part of it, as you can see the bow in it here like this. The end of it bows real easily, and this way, when you jerk on a plug, it lets the plug swing back and forth, like this wood walker here, a walking type plug that we have. It'll let the plug swing from side to side. And the same way with some of these other plugs, it gives it a real quick tip with a light wrist action, which we'll show you later on. And then also, I like a good strong reel. We found out in professional bass fishing tournaments, we've got to have something that's dependable day in and day out. It's got strong gears on it, because we don't want to get a big fish halfway in and then all of a sudden your gears lock up on it. So we found out that certain reels will last over the years. And I found out that the Garcia's probably has the strongest gears of any reel that I've used. Though there's a lot of other good reels on the market, but I like this particular one, and especially that they have a new light cast. They're making rods and reels much lighter today than they used to. And then your line, probably the line is one of the most important parts of fishing. Most people, they'll go probably 500 or 600 miles to a lake to fish, and they forget one thing, and that's to change your line. Line doesn't cost all that much. It's better to put on new line at home, have it all ready when you get to the lake. But then, even after 1 or 2 days on a reel, let me show you what can happen to your line. On this reel here, I've got new line on it. It's been on there about 3 days, a good premium line. But let me show you what happens to it. It gets set on the reel after staying on there just that long. And so I'll pull some of this off here. Well, you can see it already. You see those little kinks in it there? It always kinks up like this. It gets set like the reel. So all you have to do is, right before you go fishing the next morning, take your line, tie it to a pole or something, and stretch it out just a little bit. And then take your hand, what I always just take my hand like this and run down it just a few times. Now, look at the line again. See how it straightens out? This makes it go through these guides much easier and causes much fewer backlashes, which we all get. So now then, one thing that I do, once that you do one of those sins and you backlash, what it does, it kinks your line inside the reel and it makes some bad spots on it. And if you don't straighten it out right then with your hand, if you can't straighten it out where you don't feel a kink in it, then it's best to take it off and put new line on. And I carry new line in my boat all the time, so that something like this happens, it doesn't take me no time. I carry these big spools of new line. And I always get this premium line like this that I can use, and it will, and I can change line real quick, and that way my casts are much better, and you can catch many more fish. Okay, the size line that I like to use in topwater fishing, usually a 14-pound test. 14 pound doesn't have a lot of drag in the water like 17 or 20 does, but yet it gives you your plug plenty of room to work. And also is strong enough to hold that big fish in good brush or around stumps and logs and rocks. So 14's always been my favorite. Now I always like to go to a light line. I always call light line probably 10-pound test. I will use a light line, which I will go into later when I'm using a small topwater lure like our poppers or real small lures like this particular one right here, this little tiny torpedo. And but most of the time it's always 10-pound test. And then one other thing is I always use a snap like this. This is an interlocking snap that I call. It's about a number 3 snap. Now this snap has an interlocking system on it where if I turn it around you can see how it's curved out there. And that way, when you put a lure on there, it interlocks in this and really holds good. Very seldom do you ever see one of these straighten out. And it's plenty strong, so you just tie this on. Now, I use these on any type lure, whether it's a topwater or whether it's an underwater plug, any type lure that has a wobbling motion that goes back and forth like this. Now, I tie on direct to all the plugs that does not wobble back and forth, that pulls straight or has a motion, goes back and forth like this, which one of the first plugs that I'll talk about works in this manner here where I'll tie directly to it. But this snap to me, it probably a lifesaver sometimes because I like to change plugs real quick in order to put the right plug on a lot of times. So these work real well. Now, most lure companies use a split ring like you see right here on their plugs. They put these on all lures that has a wobbling motion like this, back and forth like this, because too many people forget about using the snap like that. With these split rings, that lets the plug work real well. So you can use either one. You can use the split ring to cut out on them, or do like I do. I take the split ring off, and use a snap like this. Works real good. Okay, now I'll take the snap ring and tie it on to the end of my line. Now this, the knot that you tie on the end of your line is really important. Like I use 14-pound test line most of the time. If I tie a single, what I call a single loop knot, a lot of times this line would break at 10 pounds. So really I might as well be using a 10-pound test line. So by tying what I call a Palomar knot, this gives you the strength of knot as what the strength of the line is. And it's very easily to tie this knot. What you do, you take your line and you double it like this, and you pull it together, pulls two strands together. You can see it in close. So I pull both like this, and then I put it through the eye. Now if I'm using it on a plug, which I'll show you a little bit later on, here, stick it right through the eye like this. Now, I get this right through both lines. Now on this end, on the left-hand side here, I'll have a loop. So all I do, I just tie a knot like I'm tying a shoe, like this, and pull it down, kind of like taut, on the snap. Now I'm going to wet it. Now the reason for getting that wet is so that it will slip down much easier and it won't hurt your line. Okay, now that I've pulled it down like this, all I do, I reach over, get this loop that's in my left hand like this, open it up, reach in and get a hold of the snap, and you pull the loop right through the snap, or in case you're tying a plug on directly, you pull the plug through the loop. Now, I reach up, take a hold of this loose end line like this. Now this line here is the one that goes through the rod. This is a loose end. So I take that and just pull on it. And this pulls it down real tight like that, which gives you a good strong knot. This knot will be as strong as your line strength is here. So it's very important to get a good knot on it. Now always feel my knot to see, make sure that it's good and right. It's not too large and it didn't kink up when I put it on. So that knot is good. Now all we do is snap off, take a pair of clippers here and clip off the line like this. Now something that's a habit of a lot of people, they'll clip off line like this and throw it over in the lake. That's a real bad habit. I used to do that until I kept having to clean my prop out and running bearings in the lower unit of my motor. Line, always just stick it in your pocket if you have to, or in my case I'll lay it down here and I'll put it in my pocket a little bit later. But anyway, this is really important now to get this knot just like this on the end. Boy, how would you like to try to make up your mind which one of these Topwater plugs to use? Well, I have my preference, and different times of year you use different plugs. So we'll kind of start in and go through each group of plugs and tell what time of year that we use them and different situations that we like to use them in. First of all, I kind of group them up into groups. The group you see down here at the lower end here, these are minnow type lures. And then the next group here of 3 or 4 that I have here, these are plugs, Topwater plugs with single spinners on the back that are used at a certain time of year. And then we get in to the more old reliable standby type plugs, the ones with dual spinners on them, 2 spinners, one on the front and back. And then we get into the poppers or chuggers, that we say. And then we get into the favorite lures, one like I was just using here, the walking type baits here. The Zara Spook and the Woodwalker here. And then up in this little corner here I have my specialty plugs, plugs that's been real good over the years and still yet very good today. So now I'll go through each one and kind of tell you the time of year that we use them and how we use them and also how you tune those plugs. And then we'll be ready to go fishing. Okay, we'll start with this minnow type lure right here. This lure here, several years ago, I remember when it first came out, is one of the hottest lures on the market at the time, and very few of them were made. And we were paying $20 deposit on these things just to rent them for a day. They cost us $10 to rent them, and then you paid a $20 deposit in case you lost one on a big bass. But nowadays, they're making enough of them that about everyone has one. But it's a Repella, and they're handmade lures made in Finland, and this lure has a special way that it works. most lures have a wobbling motion like this. This particular lure, instead of wobbling, it goes back and forth like this in the water. Does like this, which gives it a real good minnow action, and fish just love it. And so we'll show you how you work it. Now this, because it works back and forth like this, it doesn't wobble, I tie directly to it. So again, I'll get some line here on this, and I'll tie the Palomar knot again. Let's see if you remember how to tie this knot. First of all, you double your line like this. Remember, this is really important to be able to tie one of these knots. It's probably one of the more simple knots to tie. Very strong. Okay, we got the lure in both of them like this. Now have plenty of line on your left-hand loop over here so that the plug will be able to go through it. Now just tie a knot like you're tying your shoe, like this. Uh-oh, I lost part of the line there. Now that happens every now and then, so if you do, just redo it again. So now then, I'll take this end of the line, stick it through there just like tying your shoe, and pull it up. Now see the loop on this left hand of mine? I pull it up just nearly tight, not quite, and then I wet it. Again like that. Okay, now I take the lure and work it right in through the loop like this. Now once that the lure is through the loop, then I get the loose end here like this, and then start pulling on it. Every once in a while you'll hook a hook like I just about did then. Just pull it on up until it's good and tight. Now make sure it's tight. And sometimes I'll wet it again if I feel that it's not going through real good. But now that's good. That's a good strong knot there. Now I'll take the clippers and clip the end of the line off like this. Remember, don't throw the line in the lake. So we'll stick this over here on the side, so I'll stick it in my pocket again. Okay, now we got it ready to go. So I'll kind of stand up here a minute, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to cast this lure out and show you how that you work it on top. Okay, sometimes these lures, the eye gets bent on them or something, and you have to retune them. And so one way that we find out how to retune them, I'll cast it out in the water, and if it pulls straight through the water and still got the good wiggle to it, I know it's tuned properly. If it comes up on one side or the other, that means it's out of tune and we'll need to tune it. So what I'll do, I'll just cast it right out here like this, and then I'm going to wind it straight into me. Now that's coming up. Really, it's coming up on its left side. Now something to remember, when we're talking about the left side of the plug, that means if the plug was facing this direction, that'll be this side over here. A lot of people, they get mixed up when you tell them how to tune a plug. They'll think, well, if the plug's facing them, it's their left side. But you take the plug facing away from you, then you take the left side of it. Now, so what I'm going to do is take a pair of needle nose pliers, and I want the plug to go to the right more. It was coming up on the left side. So I take these needle nose pliers, be careful not to hurt the line, and then bend it a little bit to the left. Now it doesn't take much, just a little bit to the left like this. And then we'll try it again. So we'll pitch it out here, and then I pull it through the water, and still come up on the left side a little bit. I didn't quite get it enough. So we'll take these pliers again, and then we'll do it one more time here. Maybe we'll get it this time. Now another thing, now when you tie the line on, the line could get pulled to the side where it doesn't pull straight. So make sure the line's in the middle of that. So we'll try her again here. Now sometimes it takes a little bit to tune a plug, but yet, now there it goes down real straight. So now it's good, it's in tune now and ready to go fishing. Now we'll show you how that we use these type lures when we get to the fishing spot, which we're going to go to a little bit later on. Okay, you cast it out like this, and then you make little short jerks with your wrist. Now watch my wrist real carefully there. Just short jerks and just reel. I reel maybe about a half turn, not quite. In between, what it does, makes the plug dart in the water and come right back up. It doesn't go very far into the water. And then I do that about 4 or 5 foot away from the bank, and then most of the time I'll reel it straight back in. because the fish will be usually right close to the bank. Just little short jerks with the wrist. No arm motion at all in this, just wrist motion. And then I get it part of the way and then I reel it the rest of the way in. Mainly, I reel it the rest of the way in so I can make another cast. Fish always like to trap bait up against the bank. So about the first 3 or 4 foot from the bank is usually your best topwater area. And now this particular minnow type lure here has a different action than the Rapella that we just showed you. And the reason for it is this plug sets in the water up and down like this, more like a stick bait that sets down with a weight in the back of it, where a Rapella sets on top, and so do several of the other plugs like we're going to be showing. They set on top like this, and their action goes under and like into this, where this plug here, when you jerk it, it comes over and then the tail sinks back down and kind of wiggles around like that. Now we'll show you just how it works. This plug is very, very effective a lot of times when you want to work a plug real slow. In this particular plug, you got to work it slower. Now again, just a little quick flick of the wrist, and then I give it time to settle down. Let that tail work a little bit, and another little flick like that. Stays about in the same spot there. Another quicken. Each time I let it settle down and jump back up. And remember, if you notice, on a lot of the way I work lures is with my wrist. Never move this forearm here at all. Just a little flick of the wrist here. Okay, our next plug is a little different than the other two. This is a long A bomber here, minnow type lure, and it has a different action than the other two. Now we'll show you exactly how it works here. I have one on right here. And now this particular minnow type lure, this long A bomber here, works completely different than the other two that I just showed you. Remember, the Rapella works sideways like this, from side to side. And then the Lewis minnow type lure, stick bait type, it's set up in the water like this. Now this one sets flat in the water when you stop it, but when you pull it down, it has a wobbling motion back and forth like this. So I had to use it on a snap so the wobble will be real good. I use a snap or a split ring. They come with split rings on them, so you can use either one you want to. Now to show you exactly how it works here, we'll cast it over in the water here now. Okay, now this again, wrist action. Now this time I'll use a little bit longer wrist action. Now watch my wrist. Instead of a little short one like I was using before, I'll use a longer pull because I want to pull this under the water probably about 1 foot or 2. By doing that, it makes a plug go under the water, wobbles real good, and then floats back up. Always wait until it comes to the top before I pull it down again. But I use a longer wrist action when I'm pulling. Now you can do it the other way too to make it erratic, but I always like to get some of that good wobble underwater and then let it float to the top. It comes to the top real quick after you pull it under. Okay, you throw it out and give it a longer wrist action. Now watch my wrist, a little bit longer, and then lets it float up, a little longer, let it float up like that. Now this is the basic way to use these plugs like I'm showing you, but remember, do not keep the same cadence on working a plug. Make it very erratic, make 2 or 3 quick jerks and then slow jerks. Never do it the same. And now the next plug, this particular minnow type lure, it has a spinner on the back, right here like this. And it works similar to the Model A bomber, only it's got a spinner on the back, and when you jerk it, the spinner spins. And I know it's been a real hot lure all over the country, especially down in Florida. They use this religiously down there. And then we get in to a lot of our single spinners on the back of plugs here. This is a little bit later in the season when the water warms up, and probably one of my favorite here is this old hoodler. If you can look at this plug right here, put it on you and show how it works. It's really battle scarred there where it's been used a lot, and seems like the more skinned up they get, the better they work. Okay, now this old wood plug here called the hoodler is a real good working plug here. And the spinner on the back, when I jerk it, it'll make a plunking sound, and then the spinner on the back will be spinning. But you work it very slowly, it'll stay in one spot. So we'll cast it right over here, like that. And then again, about the same wrist action. Make a plunk and let it set a few seconds. Another plunk, just a quick jerk, and listen at it. And again, I'm going to be a little bit erratic. I'll jerk twice, maybe one time, and then once, and maybe twice again, sometimes even 3 times quick. But then always pause and let it set a few seconds. Okay, we have 3 lures here that have the dual spinners on the front and the back. And this is an real old plug, probably one of the favorites over the years. It's been with us a long time, called the Devil's Horse. And then the next one here, we have the wood chopper. Now the wood chopper is a type of topwater that the spinners, you just barely have to jerk it, and these spinners really churn the water. And so we'll put one of those on to kind of show you how it works. Okay, now this wood chopper lure here, it's made out of wood and has spinners on both ends. And one thing I always check on lures like this, a lot of times the spinners will both be spinning in the same direction. And if they do, it causes the lure to pull up on one side. And but this particular one that they make, the spinners always are fixed where one of them goes one way and one the other. And one easy way to tell whether they're working right or not is just blowing them. So, blowing this top one, it's going like this. The bottom one, it's going the opposite direction. So that means this one here is tuned right and it's ready to start working. So we'll cast it right out here and then show you how to work it. Okay, we throw it out, and again now let's get a little short jerks. Again, the wrist action. Just about all my topwater plugs I work with wrist action. Now this one I work just a little bit faster mostly than I do the other plugs. Because the fish, when I use this lure, the fish are a little bit more active and they'll come after something working a little bit faster. Though you can catch them by going real slow with it. Now I'll jerk it once and let it set, and then maybe 2 or 3 times fast. Keep the action different. Okay, one thing about topwater spinners, sometimes they don't spin very easily. They should be to where you just barely pull them through the water and they'll spin real well. And then the other problem that we have with them is that one of them will spin one way like we mentioned a while ago, and the other one spins the same way. When this happens, when you jerk it through the water, it causes a lure to turn up on its side and sometimes turn completely over. So what we do is always we bend the blades to where one of them will spin one way and the other one will spin the opposite direction. Now this particular one, I already found out that they're both spinning the same way, so we're going to fix it so that they'll both, one of them will spin one way and the other will spin the other way, and it'll tune it and make it work real good. So what I do, I'm going to take this back one off, so I'll just unscrew this right here. Okay, we'll just take this off and lay this part down like this, and then I'll take the blade off here. Take a pair of needle nose pliers now, and I'll clamp it right in the center real tight like this so it'll hold it steady. Then I get a pair of regular pliers here, and what I'm going to do is adjust this the opposite way of what it was. By holding this level here, you see, like this, so I take these pair of pliers and just get down kind of close and turn it to make it in the opposite direction. Okay, do that and turn it this way, the opposite direction, okay. Then I get over here and I'll do the other one, same way. Just turn it around. Okay, now then, I've got them to where this is the opposite way the front blade was. So I'll put it back together and it should work. Okay, the next lures are popping type baits. And one of the middle one here is a pop R, which the last 2 or 3 years has been very, very popular. And this particular bait sets straight up and down in the water like this, and it's got a little tail on it. And this other one is a wood chugger, made very similar, it sets the same way. And then the third one is a big one here. This is one, the popper, that I like to use when the water gets a little bit rougher. And also it's got a spinner on the back, because you can really make a good noise with it when the wind's up a little bit. And they're hard to catch if the water's not calm. So this is a good one to use then. So here, we'll pick one of these here up here and show you just how we work them. Okay, you cast over. Now on this, there's two ways that you can work popping baits. One of them is you get to chugging it real fast, popping it real, just walking it fast across the water. Just chug, 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 chug like this, all the way back to you. But usually, I like to take it and chug it 4 or 5 times real fast and then hesitate just for a second and then do it again 4 or 5 times and hesitate. And this seems to work real good, especially in the clear water lakes. The faster it works, seems like the better they hit it. But now then, in a lot of our lakes, especially down south and our lakes in the central part of the United States, we seem to like it better when you cast it out and then you pop it and you make it, let it set for a few seconds. Let the rings get out away from it, 3 or 4 foot, and then you pop it again. Let the rings move out away from it. And you keep coming in like that, and every once in a while I'll pop it twice real fast and then let it set again. And then you do that back to the boat. As you can tell, I love to topwater fish, but if I had my choice of lures, of all the topwater lures, not only these here but many others, the walking type lures is what I love the best. First of all, you take the Zura Spook. This is a real old one here that works real good. It's got a lot of scars on it, and I love to work this plug. But now we came out with a new one made out of wood, but we think works even better. And we call this a wood walker. And we'll be showing you just how that works. Okay, now this particular plug, I use a snap on it or a split ring, because what you do, you make your action to it. You want it to go back and forth, work like this. And I'll show you just how you do it here before I ever throw it in the water. First of all, if I threw it out in the water and just started reeling it in, it just comes straight into you. No action at all. You have to put your own action to this plug, and this is the way you do it. First of all, I give the line a little jerk and makes the plug go to one side. Jerk it again, and it goes back to the other side. Jerk it again, and then this is called walking the dog, as a lot of people say it. It goes back and forth just by giving a little twitch of the wrist, like that. It'll go back and forth. And then if I want to work it to one side or the other, what I do, I can make it go way to the right, way to the left, and walk it around behind stumps and logs and trees and so forth. So what I do, I jerk it, make it slide to one side like this, jerk the line again, and as it comes back just past the center, I'll jerk it again real quick. And it makes it a half step where it'll go way to one side to the right, do it the other way, and it'll go way to the left. So I can walk this plug any direction that I want to by half stepping it like that. And also you have your wide walks where you make it go real wide like this, or you can make it go real short like this. You can work it fast, slow, any way you want to, and it will catch fish. So now here's what we do with it. First of all, on a plug like this, I throw at a target. Now, like I see a log sticking up right out here, I'm going to throw past the target, way past it. I'm going to walk it around to one side of it, and then I'll come all the way around it, and you hope the fish will hit it there. Okay, now this is the way you do it. I'm going to have to stand up for this here now. Okay, I throw it out past the target, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to start. Now watch my wrist, little short jerks, get it going side to side, and work it right up to that log like that. Now I'm not turning the handle very much, just wrist action, similar to the other plugs I've been doing. Now in this case, you have to watch your plug a lot to make it do what you want it to. And if I want it to go to one side or the other, then I'll jerk it a little harder one way than I do the other way. Okay, now we'll try it again. We'll throw it this log. Now this time I'm going to walk it way to my right. So now watch, I'm jerking. Every other jerk is a little harder than the other one. And that'll make the plug go to my right. And we'll come right by the log like that. I always like to keep my rod tip down so that the wind or anything will not blow your line around. Keep the rod tip down once I get the plug where I want it. And it seems to work a lot better. Okay, there's several other lures that I like to use. And I've got some laying right here that's really old classic plugs. One of them here is a jitterbug. It's been out for years and years. I always call this a bloop bloop plug by Fred Arbogast here. And this is one that's got its own action to it. You can add some yourself, but you just throw it out and it comes across the top of the water, bloop bloop, bloop bloop like that. Very good nighttime plug on streams also. And then the next one is a plug very similar, made by Heddon. It's a Heddon crazy crawler, a real old Heddon crazy crawler. You throw it out and just pull it in and it clacks back and forth like this, makes its own action. But again, you can add to it a little bit and still catches a lot of good bass. And also this is a good night lure also on the lakes as well as the streams. And then we get to my favorites of the old plugs, the old classics. This is a Baby 13. This is the big one here. Big Baby 13 with the old glass eyes in it. And we hunt these type plugs all the time. The old ones seem to work real good. And the way we fix them, I don't have this one fixed up just like I do the others. I'll take a Baby 13 this size, a regular Baby 13, and I'll put a rubber skirt on it. I like yellow and black real well. I'll put a rubber skirt on the front hook upside down, so when it hits the water, this spreads out and the fish really go crazy after it. And what we do with it, we take it, we plunk it on top of the water 2 or 3 times, and then you can pull it under and it'll go under 3 or 4 foot sometimes. And you can catch fish on top or under the water with it. There's a gentleman over by Carthage that came up with the oddest looking lure that I ever looked at. This is called a kingfisher. And what it does, you put a little tail on the back of it and it's got a spoon shaped up here in front of it, and you throw it out and it'll pull up on top of the water like this and has a real good wobble to it. And then when you stop it, it'll slowly go down deep into the water and you start pulling again and it comes back up. I think this is really going to be a killer for big bass. I just now started trying it out and it sure intrigues me. Okay, I've showed you many different type of topwater lures today and how that I like to work them. And we're going to be going out on the lake to different places in the upper end of the lakes and down in the lower ends, different type of topwater places, and show you how these lures actually catch fish. But in the meantime, I'd like to give you a little break, what I call a popcorn break, and we'll take you to one of my favorite shopping centers. It's not only a shopping center for men, but also for women. Out on the lake that I was going to take you to a special place. And this is probably a special place to me because it's where I go to resupply my fishing tackle. Anyway, I used to just come here to buy fishing tackle. Nowadays, I even bring my wife. She loves to come to the Bass Pro Shop with me now. I'm not for sure I'd like to bring her because they got a big women's department here and she ends up spending more money than I do. So it's really a unique place. And I'd like to take you around and show you some of these different things that they do have here at the Bass Pro Shop. did you think of the Bass Pro Shop? Isn't this some unique place? Tell you what, if you ever get around close to the area, you should bring your family sometime and take a look at it in person. This is really a thrill to me. And right now though, I think I'll get those bags of new lures that I just bought and let's go back to the lake and try some fishing. Okay, one thing that I look for to catch big bass is cedar trees, like's in front of me right here. Here's 3 good ones right there. And what I do, I throw past them, get the plug out there, and then I start walking it sideways, what we call the half step again, like we mentioned before. And I'll walk it way over on one side of this, to where really actually what you're doing is walking halfway around the tree. Now if you notice, the nose of the plug is sticking right up in the limbs there. Now as long as the nose of the plug's in there, it won't hang up because the hooks are on the back side, and that way you can come right through a cedar tree real good. And then bite catch, boy, that's a good spot. Wish you try it again. Sometimes you cast twice, you come near catching the fish. Let me try it again. I might have not got close enough that time. Boy, sometimes you come through a place like this and you get to holding your breath. I think it looks so good, you think a big one's gonna hit you. Yeah, come right up in there again like this. Come on there, big one. Usually right. There he was. Boy, he got me right in the middle of that tree there. Boy, sometimes when they hang up, sometimes just kind of let them have a line a little bit. There he comes out there. Boy, was he ever fighting in there. Boy, he's got, now he come loose out there. Man, that, ooh, look what about, oh, he's going back to it. Oh no. There, I got him loose. Gosh, what a fish. Boy, he wore himself out down hung up in that thing. Boy, that's a good bass there. Real good bass. Try not to hurt him. One thing, if you don't use a dip net, it sure helps them if you watch the hooks and don't get them planted in you. That's a good fish. You'll turn him loose and he'll gain a pound or two the next year. There he goes. Yeah, good fish there. I'll hit this next tree over here. Maybe there'll be another one. I think the fishermen today really have an advantage over the people that used to fish back, 10, 15 years ago. We have all this new equipment. If you look at my dash, it has all these new gauges and gadgets, you might call it, on it. But each one of these really have a purpose for me. It saves me a lot of time when I go out on the lake. For instance, now, right up here, I've got what we call a multi-selector. This thing here not only tells me the temperature of the water, it gives me the pH in the water, and then it tells me the color of lure to use in that particular depth of the water. And what it'll do for me, I'll get out in the middle of a cove or in the middle of the lake, and first you turn on the power like this, and then, it go on just right then, and then I'll lower a probe. It's got an automatic probe in the back. I just push this, and it's got a probe that goes down in the water. This is telling me right now I'm only down in 3 foot of water, which is the top of the water, and that's what we're interested in right now, is fishing the very top part of the water to bring fish up on top water. Now I can look at the temperature right now, and I know this particular spot I'm in is a little bit cold for top water. I like to have it at least above 65, but it's been a real cold night, and we're sitting back in shallow water right now, and so it's pretty cold back here. Now the pH is 8.1, which is not all that bad. I like to have it around 7 to 7.5. And then it tells you the type of the color plug to use here. Like right here, I go over and it's got a light, and I go across and read, and gray right here would be a real good color to use. And so it tells you the particular color. Now, if I'm in a deep lake, and I'm getting a little chirp here. This thing, after it's been down so long, it'll automatically come up if you wait too long like it did then. But if I'm in a real deep lake, I will set this for search here. This probe will go all the way down by itself and all the way back up. And then right in here, it'll give me the pH cline. What that means is it'll tell me exactly how deep that the pH cline is, like a 2 or 3 point change in the pH at a certain depth of water. And we usually find the fish right above that cline. And the same way with the thermocline, what we call the temperature or thermocline, it'll show you that, of what depth of water that is in. Usually both of these will take place about in the same place, just nearly every time. But usually I'll have 2 pH clines a lot of times. And this really gives us an advantage in finding fish quick. We used to have to work for 2 or 3 days sometimes to locate fish good. And now you can go out on a lake with this little instrument and do it real quickly, or find out where they should be and where they'll bite. So it really comes in handy to me. Now the next thing that I use a lot is a graph. I use a paper graph quite a bit here. And this particular graph here, as you can see, I just turned it on coming into this cove. And there's some schools of shad there, and there's several fish right down in here, all down here. Here's another little school of shad or 2 there. And this will tell you, if you go over a school of fish, exactly where they're at, and I carry buoy markers with me like this. And if I go over a big school of fish, I just throw this out, and then I turn around and go back over it and start fishing for them. Now, you say, well, what good does this do in top water? Usually, if I know all the fish are real deep, I know that they won't hit top water very good. If fish are down at, like 10 foot and below, there's no use throwing top water out there unless the water is really, really clear to bring them up. So you got to be fishing in a particular area where you know that the fish will bite. So if the fish are down deep, real deep, I know they won't hit the top water, so no use throwing it in that particular area. Now, another thing that I really use a lot, when I start fishing, when I leave this particular place, I go to the front of the boat where the trolling motor is, and then I have a depth finder up there that I really watch. I mean, that's my eyes under the water. If I want to fish like in 10 foot of water, I know a lot of logs is down at 10 and above, 10, 5 foot. I'll watch that constantly to tell exactly where I'm at in the particular depth of water that I want to fish. It's a very, very important thing for me. Where used to, I had to learn a lake real well before I could fish it good. But now you can take all these instruments here and it really pays off. And then I've got another temperature gauge right here that I can read the top temperature all the time. And as I go in and out of coves, this particular one here will tell me exactly what the temperature is on top of the water, but it doesn't go down in the water. And then probably another depth finder here that I use all the time, right in the middle of the dash. Anytime I'm driving the boat, I turn this on here like this. I'm only in about 3 foot of water in this particular place here, but I turn this on, and this gives me the depth of the water while I'm running down the lake and I'll know when I'm getting up in shallow water and so forth. And if I want to find drop-offs and things, I'll use this till I find a particular drop-off. Then I'll turn this off and turn the graph on and start using it so I can get a better reading from it. So these instruments are very, very important to me, and I hope that you can afford some of these. They're not all that expensive like they used to be, but it will come in handy when you go to fish different lakes. Oh, one hit it good again and missed it there. Okay, when they miss your topwater like that, one thing you can do, always keep this spinnerbait handy, or a rattle trap is real good. But this spinnerbait like this right here, now that fish missed me right there. What I'm going to do is throw right in behind it, like that, and see if he'll hit this. Sometimes they'll hit this, and then sometimes they'll hit a rattle trap better. He must have moved. I wasn't quite quick enough. There he got him. Yeah, I caught him that time. He was right. Oh, he threw it. Okay, so I'll have this thing. I always keep this handy, because a lot of times they won't come back after your topwater. There's one very important thing that I think I do that a lot of people don't do. I do a lot of spot fishing. Like if I'm going to go out fishing for one day, I've got 8 hours to fish. Then I think of all the best areas on the particular lake that I can fish. Not only an area, but particular spots. Like out here, you see a big log with tree limbs all over it laying down right out through here. And then I look right here next to me, and here's another log with limbs sticking up. And then on my left side, on up the cove here is some more. You see little limbs sticking up here and there of single logs that stick up. So what I do, I look for those logs all the time. And the ones that I can see on top of the water, always have an imagination. Think, if I can see one little limb sticking up, I think, well, there's a whole big log underneath it. So very good place for fish. And that way I don't get caught up in going down a bank where there's no cover and probably no fish. Always try to hit an area to where I'm pretty sure that there's going to be fish. Now, if I cannot see the cover on top of the water, then I use my Polaroid glasses. This is something I keep with me all the time. Always wear them, looking for things underneath the water. So a limb just may be 3 or 4 inches under the water that I couldn't see without these glasses. But I look for that stuff all the time. And you never can tell. You may get that secret spot that nobody else knows about where you can catch that big bass on topwater. Uh-oh. Now I can blame that on the wind. The wind's blowing a little bit and blowed me right into that limb. Now one thing you want to do, when you get hung up like I am on a limb over there, if I bow this rod real strong like this, that plug could come back and maybe stick in my eye or my head someplace. So what you want to do, I give a little slack in the line like this, and then jiggle it. And then it flipped right over it. If you pull hard, the hook stays stuck in it. If you jiggle it, the weight of the plug will throw the hook backwards and back it out of it, and then you can get it out. And it's not near as dangerous to doing it that way as to just try to pull it out of something, and it comes flying back at you, just like shooting a bow and arrow. And believe me, I've seen a lot of hooks in people. Probably one of the most important topwater fishing tips that I can give is that whenever a fish strikes a topwater plug, do not jerk. Keep working the plug until you feel the fish on the end of the plug. And this way you will not miss a lot of strikes. Many times bass will strike a topwater plug and miss them. In fact, usually about half the time a lot of times. So always just keep working the plug, and when they get it, you'll know they're there. enjoyed these fishing tips. I know I sure enjoyed making them. And I'll tell you what, one very important tip to remember in topwater fishing, never set the hook until you feel the fish on the end of the line. And I think it'll really improve your catch. And one other thing that's very important to me is, I know our lakes here, the banks, you never see any trash on them because we always take our trash home with us. So I hope you can do the same. Until the next time, I hope I see you on the lake topwater fishing someday. We'll see you.